All right. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Happy Wednesday. I don't know. Our team's just kind of in a fun mood. And not just because it's Wednesday, I guess we're always kind of in a fun mood. So we decided to put on our favorite shades for today's webinar. I hope you are having a fantastic day so far. Just before we get started here, you'll notice the lines have been muted due to the size of the audience. So hopefully everyone knows the drill by now on Zoom. Go ahead and drop your questions into the Q&A feature, or if you want to chat, go ahead and use that chat feature. I will be keeping an eye on it throughout the webinar. We want it to be very interactive, so please do not hesitate. Let's go ahead and jump into some introductions. So your hosts who will be keeping you on the edge of your seat during today's webinar are Chase Friedman and Brent Bertolio. So let's go ahead and start with Chase. Employee number 2 at Venn Technology, and the guy in charge when our founder Scott isn't around, and probably to an extent even when he is. Chase and his team have built an award-winning integration practice that focuses on connecting Sage Intacct to other platforms through custom-built integrations. So he has more than 6 years of experience and claims that there's really no part of the Sage Intacct API that he or his team have yet to touch. So pretty extensive background there, and clearly a very big A&M fan. And then over to Brent. Brent came to Venn over 2 years ago. He has an extensive background in nonprofit ministry, and he also has a personal interest in technology automation in general, as is evident by the number of automations he has set up in his home. As a natural relationship builder, he is also the perfect fit for I should back up. He was account executive, recently promoted to director of business growth, but for the purpose of today, we're going to go ahead and director of shenanigans as his other role here at Venn. All right. So with that, I'm just going to go ahead and hand it off to you, Brent.
Awesome. Well, guys, I appreciate y'all joining us today. As Mel said from the beginning, we like to have fun, and it's pretty dang hot and sunny here in Texas. I think we hit 109, 110 the last couple of days. So, you got to bust out the shades and have fun with it. So yeah, let's get going here. So the agenda of today is that we're going to walk through integrations, like how we approach integrations, and then we want to get to the meat of what this is. And we're going to show you what the HubSpot integration looks like and the different ways. Now, this is interactive in a way, right? Now, lines are muted, but please, if you have questions, let us know. We'll answer those as we go, and we'll definitely have Q&A at the end. Okay, so integrations, a brief overview. What does that really mean to us? So integration is connecting 2 systems together. The reality is when you don't integrate your systems and you're doing the swivel chair approach, you're typing it over here, going to type over here, a lot of manual effort gets put into that, and you get errors. And when we can build a solid integration that's just following logic and pushing data across, you reduce those number of errors. At the end of the day, even with a 1% error rate, which many companies do, it's costing dollars, it's costing time, it's costing customers. So we want to reduce that down as much as possible and really just get rid of those. So that's the premise behind doing integrations. So integrations, as I said, bring data and apps together. We take different systems and connect via their APIs, pushing and pulling that data to whatever our clients ultimately need at the end of the day. This one today is going to be HubSpot and Intacct. There's 4 different types of integrations out there in the wild. And I'll briefly touch on these. I won't read all of it, but we start with kind of the package solution. If you're anywhere in the Salesforce ecosystem, this is really big there. They've got the app exchange. You can go and kind of pull off the shelf a pre-packaged integration, plug and play, very minimal configuration. More traditionally, you got custom code where you're actually spinning up servers and writing thousands of lines of code. It's very costly to maintain. It's hard to scale. This is a traditional methodology that a lot of people still use today because you can get what you want. It just takes a lot of time and money. RPA is relatively new. It's more the point and click. You're training a robot to do some of the things that you do on a screen. Again, it's new. We don't see a lot of that at the moment, but there are definitely use cases. And then where Venn primarily camps is in the middleware space. It's a no-code, low-code environment. We don't code as much as possible. We can if we need to, but it's very, very small. It's very declarative. You're connecting via those APIs, and what it gives you is the ability to scale over time, to pull in new platforms as needed, and be able to pull in new personnel as people change over. We know that that people are going to move on to other jobs or positions, and it allows you to easily transfer what's known before to that next person and not lose or skip a beat when it comes to your integrations. So our integrations approach leverages middleware. Just mentioned that we connect these apps together. So on the previous screen, talked a little bit about what kind of pros and cons were. As you can see here, without middleware, it can be costly to maintain. It's very difficult to scale, limited capacity to support cross-functional use cases, right? There's a lot of not awesome things when you don't go with middleware. Whereas if you do, there's some security measures that we have in place here. We can have secure connections to cloud, on-prem databases. We have unlimited data syncs in it. We have built-in error monitoring as well. And then it gives that broad range. If it doesn't really matter what platform you need, if it's got an API, we can hook into it with the same middleware, same methodology, same approach. All right, so before we go any further, let's stop for a second. And let's ask this question. So if you don't mind, Mel, will you throw that poll up on the screen and get some insight from our attendees here? So which of the following is you or your customers? Because we have customers, prospects, partners, all on this call. Which of the following to you is the biggest pain point you have today? Getting the HubSpot deal over to Intacct as a contract, getting the Intacct invoices back over to HubSpot once they've been synced or paid, ensuring we have the contact information. That can be a bummer if you don't. Keeping track of which deals connect to which invoices, and then always the other, if there's anything else we haven't listed. The final one is kind of a fun, jokey thing, none, reselling. If that's you, we want to talk. There is very little organizations out there that have no pain points, so we can probably learn a ton from you. So give that just a second to come, and then we'll answer that and we'll keep trucking here. Mel, you got any responses so far?
Yeah, Brent, it's looking like D, keeping track of which deals connect to which invoices.
Okay, awesome. So
and
again, go back to that swivel chair.
Yep.
Go ahead. What's Leslie?
I was going to say, we had a few votes on that one, and then we also had a few votes on other. We have pain points, they're just not listed.
Cool. Well, if you got other pain points, feel free to drop those in the comments, and we'll try to answer those as we go. All right, so Kirakan, what's possible with integration specifically around HubSpot and Intacct? So don't throw this up to overwhelm you, but to give you an idea of what an integration looks like to Venn, we map things out at the object level. And there's a lot of detail that go below this. So today, we're going to walk through what our HubSpot to Intacct contracts look like. That's this diagram here where you see contracts on Intacct. Here's the basic gist of what's standard workflow. We start with the company and the contacts, and when we hear that deal close win, which is generally what our integration listens for, when it close wins, we'll start with the company and we'll go look inside of Intacct and see if they exist or not. We'll create them if they don't. Then we move to the more transactional side. So when that deal closes, we've got deals and line items associated with those deals. We move that over into Intacct and create the contract and the contract lines, right? From then, the accounting side takes over. Those contracts will produce the invoices when you do your invoice run, right? You got those SO docs down here representing those invoices. We can sync those invoices back over to HubSpot. So now your sales team, your operations team, whoever's only living in HubSpot, not in the finance tool, has exactly what they need to see all the data that's out there. Let's be honest, I work in sales. You don't want me in your accounting system. Salespeople are not the most detailed, not the most reliable. Let me stay in my lane in the CRM. So we pull that information back over. Now it's in the finance system. So the Intacct is going to be the engine, the power horse for those renewals, right? You can see that syncing back over as new deals and producing those invoices. But the biggest thing is that AR, right? The invoice creating. So now we need to go get that money. So when that money comes in the door inside of Intacct, it's recorded as an AR payment against that invoice. We take that payment and we record it on the invoice object in HubSpot as well. Now, I've mentioned this invoice object a couple of times now. This is one that we can create via the API with a custom object if you have that ability inside of HubSpot. If you don't, then we can hijack, as we like to say, the ticket object or something else in HubSpot that you're not using. But it's always better to get a granular look here and create that invoice if possible. All right, so that's kind of the overview. Now, what else is possible? If you can dream it, if you currently do it, we can definitely put it in the integration. We won't go through everything that's out there, but some simple things like when a deal close wins and we're doing T&M type stuff in Intacct, we need to go create a project to track that against. We can create that project when that deal close wins. We can do some pretty creative stuff. So if you got any questions around what's possible, let's get on, let's talk through it, especially if you've got a prospect or a customer that has some specific needs, we can help kind of walk through that side. All right, with that, common use cases. I totally forgot. I thought we were going to jump into the demo. So we talked about a couple of things, recurring billing, obviously when we have an order entry side of this as well, not just contract, but if you got that recurring billing through contract renewals, this is a great way to keep that engine running. Obviously the invoice generation, HubSpot can be a generator of that. Intacct can be a generator of that. We have other integrations. You see down here a pay now button via Stripe. We can connect Stripe on the back end as well. So deal creates an invoice in HubSpot. You invoice out of, or deal creates an invoice in Intacct. You invoice out of Intacct via Stripe to get that payment. Payment comes in Intacct, then that payment goes back to HubSpot. It's this nice linear path of everything going back and forth. All right, without further ado, let's jump into it. So Chase, how about you take the controls, man? I'll stop sharing my screen here, and then you can pull up yours and we can rock and roll.
Let's make sure I get the right one. Got a bunch of companies on my page, big and small, but we're gonna start off with one of my favorite baseball teams here. If you haven't been in HubSpot before, it's much like Salesforce. It is a CRM, right? You can track your contacts or deals. You can track all sorts of stuff. We actually use HubSpot to do a lot of our marketing automation. Mel rocks our marketing side of the house. This is a demo environment. Everything I'm gonna show you is all demos. None of this is real. So where I'm gonna start, right? I've got a customer, Texas Rangers baseball. They've got a customer ID already. We sync them. Actually, I tested to make sure this works, and it does. So it resynced them, right? They're good to go. What we're gonna do is go in and add a new deal. Now, depending on how we set this up for you or for your client or show a demo of their prospect, right? There's a couple of pipelines here that kind of relate to the version that we would sell or your client would buy, right? Or whatnot. You've got your order entry, of course, right? Typical sales invoice, quote to cash. And we've got our contracts. If your client uses a different set of pipelines, that's totally fine. This is just how we've set up the demo environment to make it easy to show you guys how this works. I am going to go ahead and add a quick, what is this? Workspace, a quick item here. Just call it workspace subscription. And let's do, I don't know, 22. And let's just go create this guy. So it's all standard functionality so far. Over here on my left-hand panel, we've added in some fields you might recognize if you know anything about the contracts module. Essentially, we got to put some details around this contract into HubSpot. And this is something that the sales guy would hopefully know, right, as they're working the deal. They can put in the billing frequency. They can do some other things here that I'll skip over, right? And then we've got a integration sync status here to keep track of. I'm not done yet, so I'm going to save my changes and scroll down here over yonder, and I need to edit my products. So if you have done or set up the contracts module, the contract lines probably have the most fields that need to make sure that we have the right stuff in them. So there are some unique things about HubSpot that make this fun. Is probably a good way to put it. We need to set a start date here, which allows gets it to where HubSpot returns different things on the API. Hopefully they'll change this, but I don't think that's that big of an issue, right? We'll set the billing frequency to monthly. We got our quantity and price. We're going to click save down here. We're going to update the deal amount. Ooh, that's a big deal. And I'm going to go ahead and edit this. So there are several sets of dates if you know the contract line from memory, right? And we're going to try to make sure we hit all those different dates. We got our price, billing frequency, terms, and save. Now, the way that you guys might implement this for your clients, or if you are currently using contracts, might be different. We can handle just about every kind of mix and match of fields that you need to. Okay, I'm going to save this guy, and we're going to go back to the deal. Now, from here, you know, the guy, the girl, the account executive, right, runs their their deal cycle. They get closed when they send out the DocuSign. They can do whatever to get the deal closed one. We could even automate this next part if we wanted to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to sync this contract over to Intacct, save that bad boy. And then what's going to happen is that a webhook's going to go out and it's going to start checking to make sure that all of these child objects that we need in Intacct are ready to roll. We need to make sure, right, that this workspace subscription is indeed an item and it has an item ID. We got to make sure any contacts associated with the deal, which I actually forgot to put some on. If the customer, right, is not created, we'll go and create that. Essentially, we try to validate beforehand before Intacct will give us an error back, so we can preempt that. So I've done everything Intacct thinks I should do. Right, I now have a synced contract, and my contract number is 74. Let's hop into Intacct now. So this is another demo box, and this is all live. If this blows up, it blows up. I did again touch it right before we hopped on the phone, but so far we're looking good. I am in the contracts module now, right? Just hopped over to the contracts. I'm going to paste in my 74. There is our contract that got created. Okay, so in progress, right? Here's our contract line with all of our stuff set. Some of these I've statically defined, right, just to make it demo worthy, but we can hit every dimension. We can hit custom objects. We can hit UDDs. I mean, you name it. I don't think there is a single endpoint we haven't hit with our connector. Yeah, so you could have multiple line items, of course, so on and so forth. And just for giggles, let's look at the audit trail here and just verify that this was created today, PST time. So what, I don't know, call it a minute ago. All right, so next up, this is now, we're hopping into standard functionality. We need to generate some invoices for our contract, right? So I'm gonna go into the filters, I'm gonna go into the contract, oops, click on that guy, right? And let's see, I wanna change my transaction definition to my HubSpot sales invoice, do a little preview here. Okay, it says that these guys are gonna owe $99,900 and we're gonna generate some invoices, cool. And then we're gonna view the invoice run. From here, Intacct is going to send out a smart event to the integration to let HubSpot know that, hey, we got an invoice that we got to create. So let's see what invoice this was, number 45, right? This is all, again, standard functionality that Intacct took care of us. Intacct did it. That's what they did. We're going to go in and
reading that right? You're about to bill me for $9 grand.
Yeah, dude, you better pay
I
up.
signed that contract.
You sure did. Blood in blood. And Brent now has an invoice right back in here that he's either going to pay or he's going to send it to these guys, the baseball club, who knows, but I need $9 grand. And so what we've done here, this is optional. We don't have to do this, right? But we're bringing back the invoice into Intacct. So the AE, right? So Brent can see that he now has invoices to send his clients. Maybe he's not the one that is sending the invoice, but at least he knows, right, that we've got an invoice for $9,900 and they haven't paid us yet. So this is a custom object in HubSpot. You have to have HubSpot Enterprise to be able to use custom objects. If you don't have HubSpot Enterprise, we just wouldn't send this stuff back. Alternatively, we can bring them in as tickets, which is kind of a janky way to do it. We've done that before too. Yeah, so here we've got our amount due, so on and so forth, right? And we could go in and make a payment which would come over. If you wanted to, we could create another custom object to have house the payment, right? So you could see the payment and the invoices separately. But the last thing that really ends up happening here is that when you make a payment, right, this goes down to 0, or if they made a partial payment, right, this field gets updated. So really that's the end of the demo here. If you have other ways that HubSpot works, maybe you use a bunch of custom objects, or maybe you do something totally differently. The contract workflow that I just showed is not the only way that it works, right? So if you've got something unique, we can certainly handle it. So guys, I am all done with the demo. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and hand it back to you, Brent.
Well, before we get all this, the more specific piece here. So I mentioned we do order entry as well. We have standard integration for order entry. Imagine same process, a deal close wins, it moves over straight to the invoice or to an order inside of Intacct. So there's that side. But before we go much further with the cracks, can you talk about renewals? Contracts themselves can get hairy, right? There's a lot of stuff under the hood. So how do we handle renewals, and what are maybe a couple examples of some integrations we put out into the wild? Because I know that can get, again, pretty hairy and pretty specific.
Yeah. So this is where we leverage, if you want, we'll leverage the Intacct renewal functionality. We do have the ability to set the renewal template here on the front end, like the first deal that gets signed, right? And based on whatever template you've got set up, we could pipe that over. What ultimately ends up happening, right, is you do your renewal process inside of Intacct, or Intacct does it for you, so to speak. And those templates will manage when the renewal contract gets created. What we do in a case like that is take the contract from HubSpot and go back, take the contract from Intacct and go back to HubSpot and create a brand new deal that's ready to be worked by the last person that closed the last deal. And so essentially that renewal process gives you that full cycle, right? Now Brent can go in and say, hey guys, Texas Rangers, you guys, remember that big deal you signed, we need to renew it. He can win the deal and do literally the same exact thing. Maybe there's, some modifications to the products, maybe they're buying some more stuff. But ultimately we can have that full cycle through from initial deal right to renewal. We probably don't have time today, but we even support, mid-year coterminous amendments. Maybe you got a debook, right? All of those scenarios we've done before, and they're certainly possible. Now, I will say that it's likely that your AE probably doesn't understand everything that, we're talking about from an accounting standpoint. And so there's probably some modifications to their process that they will have to entertain. But we've done this before for multiple clients now, and eventually they'll get there, right? But if they do it right, if we put good data in, we'll get good data out, and everybody will make more money. So, yeah. Brent, I think that answers that.
That's good. Yeah, from a sales side, traditional sales, even from a nonprofit, if you're doing anything there, having that renewal come back through and giving the person that's in charge of that deal the opportunity to have a white glove approach, or just to automatically close win it with the system. We give functionality for you to kind of choose your own path and what makes sense for your organization. So yeah, that was great, man. All right, let's hop back into the deck real quick, wrapping this up, and let's share that. So it goes full screen. Okay, so guys, we walked through the demo. As I said, there's a lot more that we do. So want to open it up for questions now, if y'all have them. Hopefully y'all put some in. We do have this QR code on screen, so if you wanted to schedule time with us, you can scan that. You probably also saw our emails throughout the demo, B. Bertolio at Venn Tech or C. Friedman at Venn Tech. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. But yeah, Mel, you got any questions that we can answer during this time, since we have a few minutes?
I always have to ask, how long does it take to implement?
That's a great question. So on average, implementation is generally going to be about 4 to 5 weeks on the order entry side, and probably 4 to 6 on the contract side. Again, it gets a little bit hairier. So included in that, we do detailed governing requirement gathering for like that first week, 2 weeks. Make sure we are accommodating the specific logic and configuration they need. We build it out, we install it, and then we have adequate testing on the back end. And where projects go off the rail most of the time is if we don't have enough time to test. So we don't want to push anything into production that hasn't been fully vetted from our customers and our partners.
All right. And I know one of the ones we get a lot too, if we have a client or a partner has a client that is in the process of implementing Sage Intacct, when is the best time to bring in an integration with HubSpot if they know, if that's already something that has a requirement that they know they're going to need?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So either from the person, the end user that's using HubSpot, or if it's the partner that's implementing Intacct or has a customer that's Intacct, it's always best to bring in early. right? And where that is at the beginning of an implementation, at the beginning of them not even knowing if they need a CRM or not, the quicker we can get involved in the conversation, we can help them navigate those waters. We can be a guide of sorts. We don't have a kickback from HubSpot. We're not selling that to you. So we can even help. Is that the right solution for you? Great. If it is, here's how you can design your system knowing the end in mind. Where Venn really shines is not only do the technical details of getting an integration in place, but we think about the beginning and we have the end in mind with the finance tool. So we work that front to back and can really advocate. So if we can help you as a partner, come in and assist with the Intacct process and kind of reinforce why that's a fantastic tool and show what's possible, or just come in after Intact's been done and they're really thinking they need this integration out with HubSpot. Either way, the sooner we can chat, the better it's going to be for everybody.
Awesome. All right. Well, I guess we'll give folks a few more minutes back in their day. So again, I just dropped Brent's email into the chat. So if you're interested in learning more about integrating HubSpot or any other app, really, we've got multiple standard or pre-built integrations to Salesforce, Stripe, Shopify. There's hundreds of apps that we've integrated for companies. So reach out to us. Now is not the right time. Hopefully you know where to find us. Go to our website, follow us on social for when the time is right to engage with us. We hope you learned something today, and thanks again for joining us. Hope you have a great rest of your week.
Awesome. Bye, guys.